All right, so we're going to show how to add elements from our updating spreadsheet. We're actually just going to do this one for now for this particular recording. Greg's already gone through and added each one of the individual checklist items in their appropriate categories. And so that should take care of it. We're going to add two different checkbox categories to the federal overview, which is the beneficial ownership interest and Medicare revalidation. So most of what we're going to show is not for a new page necessarily, but for pages specific to that have already been created. So first of all, you got to find the correct page and make sure that you're editing the correct page. In this case, we're going to do it the federal overview page. And you can see how this is broken out. Everything is built in a row and column standpoint. So as we jump over and look on the federal overview page, you'll see this is row one. This is a row here that has the major these components here. Americans with Disability, OSHA, and Policy Manual. That's row three. You'll notice each one of them is built differently and can be built completely differently as well. For example, this main federal components and the Office Inspector General could be broken into two columns instead of, or two equal size columns instead of two unequal size columns. In fact, I'm just going to show that real quick, Greg, to just so everybody knows what the heck is going on here, who may look at this in the future, right? So as we look at the overall federal compliance and the compliant percentage overall, in this case, we're going to jump down. This is this third row, right? So the first row is the title. Second row is the overall, the overview look, if you will, for federal compliance and the overall compliance. And this is the third row, and that's where we're at. So as we look at three row, and we've got compliance dials for ADA, OSHA, policy manual, and that is these, and then we're going to break this OIG out. We still have to do a review to see how this compares to what we already have. We may have some overlap there that needs to be modified, but we're going to take care of that later. For now, we're just going to demonstrate how this plays out. So in this case, because this looks weird, right? It's 3 and 1. And so if we get everything more equal, we're going to drop this into two columns. So in this case, instead of a 2, 3 and a 1, 3. And so what this means is it's 2/3 of the page versus 1/3 of the page as the other side. That's how we get the wider left and the narrower right. You have a lot of choices. You can actually do just the opposite, where it's a narrow left and a wider right. You can have three columns, a single column, or you can break it into two equal columns. In this case, we're just going to make these two equal columns, and then I'm going to do an update. When it's done, I'll come over here and refresh this page, and you'll see now how that changes these main federal components versus the Office of Inspector General column. And so it makes it just slightly more clean in how it appears. But this is the page we're going to add the two new elements. So when we look at this, we're adding the beneficial ownership interest and the Medicare revalidation. And so we're going to come to the federal overview and go to the bottom. The very bottom will a lot of times be a simple text widget with an important note tag that we have to hit. But in this case, we're going to add a new row first. And in this row, we're going to add a two columns. So it's going to be columns that are going to be equal. So this is the half and half. And then go back to content. So this is how you select it in the tabs through here. By the way, these anchors are how you can actually provide links directly to that box on that page. But in this case, we're doing content column size, where that's the half and half, and then the content is what we're going to add. So in this case, we're going to add two different checkboxes. So the first checkbox we're going to add, and we're going to go ahead and leave it as graph type at the top. I'll show the difference here in those two things here in just a minute. But the first thing we're going to grab is a beneficial ownership interest filing that we're adding as a new area. And so that's the title of this one is the BOI interest filing. And then on this, we're going to select that as a category. So make sure when you do a search for that same thing, you can select the question, which isn't just a single question. It will be all of the questions underneath this particular category, then we can add. Does that explain everything there, Greg, you think?
Yes. Yep.
In this case, we don't need a link, so we're not going to add a link to anything because each question has its own supporting links to help our doctors out and getting this filed. Then we're going to add another element. Remember, we did a half and half, so we're going to add half the element, which is the BOI on the left, and the other half is going to be that Medicare validation. So we're going to add another checkbox and go back over to the spreadsheet. In this case, we're grabbing this Medicare revalidation, right? And so that's going to be the title of this section. Again, we're going to leave the graph at the top, search for that Medicare revalidation, select it as a category, and we are done. And go back up to the very top and do an update. Does that cover that updating, Greg? Did I forget something
Yes.
there? Okay.
Nope. I don't think so.
So now we come back over. Here's that federal overview page. We'll do a refresh again. And now instantly you'll see these questions appear down below. Note to self, we probably need to make a modification on that language there, how to check the Medicare revalidation status, just to fix
Yep.
that spelling. Um, and all of those things then are now added in the test accounts. You can always double check and see how that works out. And clicking through just to make sure that everything is okay. Everything seems to be fine. And you'll see there's no notes. So there's no indications that there's any notes that we need to add. And if we did, if you go to the bottom of many of the pages, you'll see this important note and this indicator for one here. And this is a standardized policy or policy statement that we have for things that are optional, written policies, if you will, that we believe are important written policies. But this says, hey, you know what? Law doesn't require this, but if you really want to be compliant, this is the best. This is a best practice to get it done. And that's what that note primarily indicates. Well, back on our page that we're editing, that really does nail us down on this federal overview. And here's what's really interesting. When it's simple, then all we have to do then is go ahead and mark. And this is the column that shows, actually this on this page, it's a comma for audit, but really this is that we have added them to a page and that everything is taken care of. And so all of that is done. And now all we have left are these items here. Anything else that I've forgotten there, Greg?
I don't think so.